Go ahead.
How's that?
Yeah.
Well, here it is, September the 19th, 1995. Clarence and Deloris, Jenny, Blackville. And I have a little conversation here, a little interview about your experiences in cheesemaking, which I'm sure is going to be very educational and something you want to read, recorded in history. Dr. Bill Honey, we've got the video recorder going over here, and we're going to start out and just see what all transpired in your life. All right? Clarence, where did your folks come from?
Well, my parents are from Switzerland. My mother was from Bern, Switzerland. Dad from Zurich, Switzerland. They met as school sweethearts. When my father was 17, he decided to come to the United States. He said it was so prosperous here. A rumor has been in Europe. So he did that when he was 21. He had bought a farm in the meantime at Deloris, Wisconsin. And
How old was your father about that time?
21. He was 17 when and when he was 21, he went back to Switzerland, and
He had money enough to buy a farm.
he had bought a farm. Of course, it was mortgaged, and he went back to Switzerland. And of course, they've been commuting back and forth by mail, and they got married, and so Mom and Dad came back to America. And that was, I would have to say, that was probably in about 1922 or 1923. And then my brother came along in 1923. That's the year that my brother was born, Henry.
Out on this farm then,
On this farm.
which is north of New Glarus? or-
Yeah, and all it was in between Glarus and Monroe, a mile south in that area. And and I was born in 1925, and my sister Clara was born in 1927, and my youngest sister Gladys was 1929. Then, of course, the Depression came in, and things got very, very difficult. And father lost his farm in the early 30s, and he really didn't
Those
know
were hard times. then,
Yes,
you know.
very difficult times. I remember him selling 60-pound feeder pigs for $1.50 a piece. That's what they was bringing, and he thought he was a little happy with that. But anyway, what had happened is he lost his farm, lost all his personal property, and he ended up working on a farm as a married hired man down by Clarence, which is south of Monroe. And he did
And
this.
you lived with him down there?
Yes.
You helped on the farm too then?
Oh, yeah, well, I mean, I was just pretty young. I mean, of course you did. But I can remember helping, when I was 5, 6 years old, we didn't have no electricity, had no tractor, we used all horses, all horse equipment. I planted a lot of corn with horses, cultivated corn with horses. I made hay with the old hay loader, and loose hay in the barn, no bales, and baler wasn't even heard of that time, other than a stationary baler.
You went to country school then, I suppose?
Yes, I went to Greenbush School. What had happened is that he had worked out several years, and he had, and Franklin D. Roosevelt came out with this federal land bank, helped these
Sure.
young farmers get going again, and had a financing program, so it was capable of my father buying another farm, which he did, east of Monroe, 3 miles east of Monroe, Sylvester Township. He lived there and raised us children there. And Greenbush School was only 3 miles. We walked there every morning and night.
Did you learn Swiss at home then?
When I went to school, I was probably about 5 years old when I first grade, and I couldn't speak a word English. And the teacher had a difficult time with me. Because we always spoke the native tongue. But Now it's just the reverse. I have problems with the Swiss. But anyway, I stayed there with that till I was, and it was still tough. I mean, you know, I remember Mom buying flour and I think it was like 60 or 70 pound bags printed on one side, and then she sold nice dresses for my sisters out of this. And that's how we got along, you know, when we fried down the butcher hogs and fried down in these stone cracks, you know, poured full of hot lard. In the wintertime, I got cold and dig them out of the grease.
Sure.
And anyway,
Refrigerators are.
but anyway, it was difficult for my parents.
How did you get involved in cheesemaking then?
And well, that's what I'm getting at now. And so I was 12 years old, and Paul Foster, which was running the Green Cheese Factory, which is the Chewy Cheese Factory. They call it the Green, but it's right southeast of Monroe, about 4 miles maybe. And Paul was looking for some help. I didn't know the people, but I heard it through Reinhard Miller. And Reinhard, I don't know how the information got to me in one way or the other. I went down there and Paul hired me, 12 years old. I left home, and I never went home after that other than to visit. I worked for Paul
Was this in the summertime then?
Summer, winter, year round. He would pay me $15 a month. That's $0.50 a day during the summer months. And in the winter months, I got board and room when I went to school. I would go to school at. We leave about school started at 8:30 in the morning and it was out at 3. And then I'd work from 3:30. I'd be home at 3:30 at the plant, and I'd make boxes and salt Limburger cheese and wrap Limburger cheese till 9, 10 o'clock at night. I've done that all the way through. And
That only all Limburger.
yes, at that time, yes. And then I was there. Oh, I can't remember, but I think it was about 15 maybe. No, I was 14. Then I went up to Belleville, and I hired out to Mr. Lauenberger. He was a German, another, he was brick and Limburger. And I worked for him about a year. He was an old German, and he was very tight. You know, he didn't want to spend any money. I remember he used to have the pump jack, which we had all water was pumped with a pump jack.
The gasoline motor or?
No, it went off on a line shaft. And he had a little steam engine in there, and that's how we would run his pump jack with a line shaft and a pulley. And our separator was run that way, where there was an ivory pulley on the old lawn separator. I remember it like it was yesterday. And to get speed, we just keep screwing this belt in. And then we had everything in the
There's a lot of belt dressing to it.
Oh God, yes. And the old brass Viking pump was run by a line shaft. Everything was run, you know, it only had one pump.
You know, they lasted a long time. They still around, aren't they?
Oh, I think so.
Stainless.
Yes, they are.
That was really a pump.
Yes, it was.
That was quite an invention.
Yeah, and the milk was distributed into the vats or into kettles by an eave trough, a galvanized eave trough. That's what we use. We just run it from one tank to another and by gravity flow. There was no
The weight tank.
Yeah.
For the weight, I mean, to where you weigh milk.
Yeah. From there, it went right into the van. Well, I'll tell you, I stayed with Lombard about a year, and I can remember he had a family. He had one girl and 2 boys, and he always felt that a hard man's a hard man. So therefore, you know, if we had milk to drink, he would always skim the milk first because the hard man was not supposed to have any fat. That was money, so he would skim it before. But their family had so, and we
You
had.
were drinking 2% before they even thought about it.
That's exactly what happened. And I remember him. We have cornmeal, mush, and that type of thing for meals. And it used to disturb me because in the evenings after the hard man was in bed, then their family would get their big feed. But we wasn't entitled to that because we was a hard man. We was a part of the family. And And that's the way it was at that time.
Yeah, I think that was kind of a general thing. There was a commoner, and then there's professional people, and especially in Germany, right? More so than there was that class distinction.
That's exactly. And I stayed there about a year, and then I left. And then Henry, my brother, had started working in the cheese business. He was working for Mr. Hillflicker up here at the Jordan Center Cheese Company up here by Monticello. And he worked for Mr. Hillflicker for about, he was there about a year. He was making Swiss at that time. And he was like only 15, and he was washing a mill Swiss. You know, they weighed 180.
Yeah, you people had to make us
That's
train per people, but how you did that, I don't know.
So I don't know. Then me and Henry, I remember it was in the fall. Me and Henry decided. Then I think Henry was 16 and I wasn't 15 yet, and we decided to see what the rest of the country's like. And we had bought a used car. I remember we had a Model A. We bought it, and then we paid $35 for it. We thought we had a Cadillac, you know. I mean, we didn't. And we took this Model A and we went up to north of Madison, up to Sun Prairie, Beaver Dam area, and we got a job there in a cheese factory working for Mr. Hassler. That was a cheddar operation. It was in the country, Granite Hill Cheese Company.
And where is this located about?
This is at Hubbleton, Wisconsin, which would be
Madison about.
Madison. You'd have to be between Watertown and Madison.
All right.
I just have to put you in areas, but
It's up in the
but
Cheddar country up in there.
And I can remember we used to have a roadhouse there, and me and Hank used to go there, and they had slot machines. You know, it was slot machines were still. So history's repeating itself now. I guess I should look at it. But we used to. I was 15 at that time. I used to play slot machines in these bars, and there was nothing said about me being underage or anything. You know, it didn't mean nothing at that time.
Well, where did you stay, Clarence, and you and Henry?
Well, we at this plant it was a 3-story building, and we up in the pack house, what I used to call the pack house, when he had the supplies, the wood boxes and stuff, or cheddar, and that's where we had a bed up there, and no heat, of course. In the morning we'd get up and our blanket would be all frost from breathing. You know, it was really cold, but you got accustomed to that. And we stayed there. I worked with Mr. Hasper till he got hurt.
How much milk were you running there, do you think, about that time?
We was probably running about 20,000 pounds, 2 10,000-pound vats.
You're talking about 1940.
It was in 39 or 40, somewhere in that area. Because I can remember the press was all made out of wood, and you would elevate one side of the press, put your cheddars in it, later cheddar, 60-pound cheddars in it, and then you would take this block, and then the weight of the gravity of the weight would press the cheese.
So they didn't have here.
All wood. There was not no hydraulic system like we have today.
But you had the jack in the back, right?
Yeah, tighten it up, and then we give the weight down on the other end, and then it was all.
And cheddar, that 60-pound is what they call the original cheddar.
Mm-hmm.
You know, of course, they got twins and daisies. But the 60-pound is what you see in these boxes, what a lot of people are familiar with.
And I remember we had a lot of problems with bloated, but gassy cheese at that time. We would slab them, and then we would turn these slabs sometimes until midnight. It was 6 hours just to try to work the gases out. You know.
And the slabs got about that.
Especially in the fall when the silage was a big problem.
The slabs got about that thin. They just had like
They
a
were-
on the sheet.
Yeah, they were thin almost, yeah.
And then the gas worked out, right?
Yes, it did. Yes, it did work. It worked itself out, and of course, you'd have to heat the pan up every so often, you know, and to keep somewhat the temperature up there.
Then, of course, you had a cover. Did you have a cover to?
Yeah, we had an old canvas with slats across that we would slide it across to keep. You know, if you remember that.
These are the things you got to remember because that's the way it was back then.
Yes.
Well, you didn't have that much heat in the factory either.
No, that's right.
Winter time.
That's right. Well, we stayed there, me and Henry. Oh, I don't know, and it was really interesting. What happened is that they had 2 daughters, and we got into a snowball fight. I was just a young guy, with one of the girls in it.
Check on this here, Deloris.
It bothered Mr. Hester, Mrs. Hester, that we was having a snowball fight, and wrestling out in the snow, so we got to fight. Because for some unknown reason. Well, from there, from there we went. Well, right from there we came back to Monroe for several weeks, and this had to be in 41 or 42. That's when the World War broke out. And Henry enlisted in the United States Marine Corps, and I stayed here for about a year, and my father got killed in an automobile, a truck accident, in 1943, 42 or 43, and I helped my mom on the farm for a short while, and told my mom, you better find a renter, a tenant for the farm, because I'm going to the army. And she said, you can't do that because you're not 18. Well, I said, won't you fib for me or whatever? She says, well, if that's what you want to do, that's fine with her, you know. So I went in. I enlisted in the army, and I wouldn't have been 18 until July. So this was in May. So I was 17 years old, and I went into service. I wanted to get in the Marine Corps, but I was too light. I couldn't make it on account of weight. Because at that time, they was pretty rigid about weight in the Marines. So I went in the Army, my second choice. Took my training at Little Rock, Arkansas, and Roper, Alabama, and went to Salinas, California, and went overseas with no furlough. From the time I left, I went right overseas. And I spent my career in the Army in South Pacific. I got into the Americal Division. We was kind of a bastard outfit, that's what they call it. They put us where they needed us. And I went
Was that is the Americal in 96?
the Americal, yeah.
96. And by the way, I found it right over there. I was in the 77th, and I took my training in Little Rock also.
Is that right? Interesting.
Go ahead.
And then from there, I went to, of course, then I went into Luzon, the Philippines, and Cebu Islands, and they got in about June of 1945. We went into rigid training for invading the home island, and they was getting us prepared to invade Japan. We was to invade Japan on somewhere around the 2nd or 3rd of November of 1945. Of course, in the interim, the war had ended.
The bomb came.
The bomb came, and there was the end of the war. And I remember we had to have 146 points to get discharged. I had 140. I had 182. I had way over the points I needed to get home. And I was at the Philippines at the time, and I asked for company commander. I said, I've been over here, I made it, I got hurt a few times, but nothing serious. Is it possible I can re-enlist for about 6 or 8 weeks? I want to go to Japan and see what this is all about. Well, he said, we'll work that out, which was quite interesting, and he did. He gave me an extension, and I went to Japan, and I got some details that was interesting at Mount Fujiyama. I was right to the top of Mount Fujiyama, and that was in October of 1945. See how well they were fortified. It was. I'm thankful that we didn't have to invade that island. I mean, I probably wouldn't be here talking to you people today if that be the case.
There's no doubt in my mind either that without the atomic bomb, you'd never.
No. And then I came back to Monroe. I do recall that I got discharged in California. I had lost my front teeth. A sniper had, instead of giving his weighted position, he hit me over the front of my mouth with a rifle butt. Rather than shooting me to give away position, he just backed off and he nailed me. It was coming to bang, boom, and I lost these front teeth. So when I got back to California, the government put in all new teeth, and that's been 50 years ago, and they're still as good as the day they put them in. So they did a remarkable job.
Okay, then how did you get into the cheese business there?
And then when I got back, I was home 3 or 4 days, maybe a week at best, and I hired out to Hank Elmer. That's down at Clarence. And I worked as a Swiss operation. I worked for Henry, and that's where I met my wife Deloris. Henry was working at, my brother Henry was working at the Limburger plant in Blanchardville. And he was working for Ludwig Zoller. And I would go up and see Henry, and that's how I met this lady. And we commenced to go together, and only because Henry was going with her sister. And eventually, Henry got married to Leela, Deloris' sister, and shortly after, I worked for Henry. I decided, I stayed there about 2 years, and then I went to Pioli. No, I did not. I didn't go to Pioli. I went to Kraft Foods in Monroe, Wisconsin. The Center Factory, and I worked there at Kraft Foods for possibly 1.5 years or 2 years. And I had a chance to get a job with.
Now they were making Swiss there.
Yes, we were making Swiss.
They were doing a lot of experience.
Yes, we were.
Hardell was there. And
Yes, they were there.
Price.
Yes, that's right. Price and Hardell, and then we had stainless steel kettle in. I remember. Experience just came out when all occurred to burn out. We had a real problem with that, but it was part of it.
Somebody told me they even thought when beans and cheese didn't turn up, they put copper salts in there.
That's right, exactly.
To see if they could.
Yeah, and well, I think we discovered one thing that it took copper to make it was Swiss cheese. For some reason or other, that oxidizing had something to do with the flavor. That was the end result anyhow, versus stainless steel kettles. And then I left Crafts, and I went to Pioli, worked for Otto Thoma.
Is the
largest Swiss
center right there in the Four Corners there?
Yes, it was a large plant, probably one of the largest plants in this part of the state. And I was there probably about 3 months. Me and Deloris got married, and I worked for Otto. Pardon? 2.5 or 3 years, and I was ready to buy my own plant. And I can remember me and Deloris spent evening see these plants in the fall. You would look for new cheesemakers, and of course you got wind of that from different salespeople and cheese buyers and that type of thing. And I remember one fall we went to 17 different cheese factories applying for jobs. To be the head cheesemaker. We could be the head cheesemaker. Co-ops. And what they do is they would take all the applications, they would screen them down to about 4 or 5, and then they'd have all the farmers meet, and then they'd make their choice of who they want for the cheesemaker. And it was pretty competitive and awful difficult.
Deloris, did you go along with him in some of those meetings?
Oh, yes.
Kind of think maybe they could help a little bit too?
I sat and listened to Oh, yes.
So finally, I did get a factory. It was a small plant, and that was at the Dramond Valley Cheese Company. It was a small plant. They had, I think we had 23 farmers, or was it 16? I can't remember anymore. But anyway, at that time,
And where was this located?
this was at between Blanchardville and Mount Horeb. A small plant, and I was there making Swiss. I remember we flushed out with 3 wheels a day. That's where I first met Glenn Irby. Glenn was a state grader at that time, And I was fortunate, I had beautiful cheese. The cheesemaker prior to me had nothing but pinholes. He had real problems. Mostly all grinders. Well, I don't know what, somewhere or another, I was fortunate enough to came out and had some nice cheese. Matter of fact, I remember we had 90 consecutive days that we had straight A's.
Well, that's
A week.
remarkable. Now, what culture were you using it in?
I made my own with whey. I had an old culture box with a little wire in the bottom and a thermostat in there, like it was an old furnace, and that's how I made my own starters.
The old incubator.
Yeah, the old incubators. Made it out of
With a
wood.
little eyeglass in there that you
Little
look
glass in
there.
there.
Look in there.
And we made our own, and if the power was out, which happened quite frequently at that time, you send the junk back to the boiler, you know, where it was warm, see? And I still had good culture, it seemed to work. We had,
Where do you ship your cheese?
at that time, I was selling my cheese to Lake Charmony at Monroe. And
Okay, then from there, then how did you and Clarence get together then? Or did you go to
Well,
the factory then yet? Or?
yes, from there, with my, I heard that Mr. Alfred Schill, that Apple Grove Cheese Company wanted to go into our larger plant and look for a new cheesemaker, and I went down, and I think this is where Deloris filled in very well, because there was all Norwegians, and I had a Norwegian wife, and they really enjoyed that. So I didn't have any problem getting that factory at all, which was a nice plant. So I bought Alfred Schill. I remember it cost me $13,500 for all the equipment, which was a lot of money at that time.
And how many kettles?
We had 8 kettles, and I didn't have, I couldn't get the financing. I didn't know what to do. At that time, banks was very reluctant about lending me money, and so Henry says, "Well,
What year was this about? Time frame?
1948,
When we came back with girls?
about 1950,
51.
about 50, 51, and then we
So it was about the time that Kraft was trying to fight the state of Wisconsin for the Kraft.
That's exactly right.
And the Swiss was kind of,
So Deloris made a suggestion. We had our first daughter, Vicky, and Deloris made a suggestion. Would you come see Otto? Mr. Tallman, I worked for him at Pillite, and I left him when I went out with the drama. So I did. I went to see Otto, and I said, well, he says, tell you what I'll do is I'll come down tomorrow afternoon. He says, we'll take a look at it. So Otto comes down with his big new roadmaster, very impressive, you know. And we went over there, and he looked at the factory, and he says to me, "Oh, looks good to me. Come up to Belleville Bank." And I started my banking at Belleville, and we will continue banking with the Belleville Bank. I was just come up to Belleville, and said, "We'll see what we can do." I went up there, and he gave me all the money I needed. Never took a note. Never took a signature. He says, "No," he said, "you just pay it back the way you can do it, you know." And he was satisfied with that. So
that's the way it was back in the day. The hand was the bond.
Yeah.
Your word was your bond.
Yeah. And I can't remember, but like 16, 18 months later, we haven't paid off. You know, we didn't spend any money. We done the best.
And how many cheese grades did you go up to 8 then?
We made 8 there. Then it came into this Swiss cheese got saturated, you know, and we didn't know what to do. So finally, I told my farmers, I had a meeting with my farmers. I had to tell you what, we better do something here. I mean, so, you know, I can't hardly sell the stuff, you know. And at that time, you know, which was a double A's, and they had A's and double A's. Remember the grade of A's, B's and C's and D's and undergrades?
And when the cheese was tight, they really graded it.
Yeah.
I mean, then you know the thing, you didn't have a say.
That's just right. I mean, if you didn't have absolutely perfect, you know, you didn't make it. You know, the market seemed to demand the grade.
Yes, let me ask you, the cheese wasn't any different whether it was
Absolutely
A or
not.
double A or B. It's
Absolutely
just
not.
that it was something that
Absolutely.
the dealer could buy for a penny or
And
less, right?
so I wonder if they didn't pay the old buyer under the table, or that was just the thing that went on. But there was a real question. But anyway, I stayed there, and like I say, this saturated, cheesemarket got so saturated that nobody wanted to buy it. And I talked to my farmers, I says, I'll tell you what we'll do. I says that we should build an addition, I says, that we should make ourselves a diversified operation at Apple Grove Cheese Company. Oh, he said, he didn't want to do that, that's a lot of money. And I said, I'll guarantee you, he says, 5 years, it says, your building will be paid in full. And he says, you're doing a good job for us, we are happy, go ahead and do it. So I went to Argyle Bank, Mr. Larson, and I told him what my plans were. I says that I'd like to, would he finance it for the co-op? And he says, absolutely. And we put up, and we got Mr. Steinman from Monticello, the architect, to design and put on an addition for us. It was a gorgeous job. And I went and we put in 2 cheddar vats and pasteurizers. We didn't use pasteurizers, Swiss. And we put in presses, and we went into Longhorn and Daisies, and we did that for...
Which is all the cheddar type cheese.
All cheddar.
And with your experience there making cheddar there with raw milk, there was quite a difference there with pasteurization.
Oh yes. I mean, you had it was fortunate. We did well with it. The product turned out real well. We had mostly all state brands. Very seldom we have a junior. And
to maybe record this now, the cheddar, like you were saying, like the 60 pound rolls, what size were the twins? 12 pounds?
The twins were about 12 pounds, and
Longhorn was your Longhorn.
The Longhorn's about 13 pounds. They were tapered, a little bit tapered.
But it's still all the same vat, the same cheddar.
That's right.
And then, did you ever make any midgets then?
No, I didn't make midgets because it's
Which is a smaller type of.
I felt it was too labor intensive. It takes
What
a lot
about
of
daisies?
I made daisies. Yes, we made a lot of daisies.
Just through the June month, that was kind
well,
of market at that time.
Because if you remember Blackie Swaghart, Doran Swaghart's father was buying cheese at the time, and Blackie always says, I'll pay premiums for June daisies. So we did make June daisies, and we'd sneak our first half of July in as June daisies too, because they didn't seem to make too much difference. And Doran, Blackie always paid us a premium for it.
Yeah. I think that still is kind of a trend here today, but maybe explain to them where the farmers turned the cows out of grass. It was that fresh grass, and the wheat then came, and the old silage was gone. And
That's right.
It was the June.
Yeah.
And the nights were still a little bit cool yet.
That's right.
Whereas July, the nights got hot, and that's where originated the June daisies. Mm-hmm. Or like they used to say in Baumgarten now, in June we got grass break.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
We're in a better place.
I remember
Very interesting.
There's been. I remember they talk about the sewage. All the sewage was piped down into the creek. I mean, a floor wash. I'm talking about. Now, I'm not talking about the sewage from the restrooms. I'm talking strictly from the floor wash. And in the evenings, I'd go down there, and there's where the big catfish was, right where
Well, they kind of talk about their sewage, but guess what they use for bake? Cheese bake, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Cheese on the end of all.
Well, we stayed there. I stayed there. Then what had happened is that Mr. Scheidecker from Belmont, Wisconsin, Art Scheidecker had decided that he was going to. The farmers decided to replace him. They had a big argument. He was a temperamental individual. I liked Art, and I worked a lot with him, but he was an extremely temperamental individual. And his son Charlie was equally as bad.
So can you help me? I'm trying to kind of quiz myself. Who built that factory?
That factory was built in 1942. It was built by the Farmers Co-op.
But who was the cheesemaker? I'm trying to.
The cheese. Pardon?
Christian?
Christian.
Wasn't Ron Christian's day?
Christian, he's the one that.
That's right. He was the
was
first
instrumental
cheesemaker
that put that. It was just such a big modern plant at that time.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Factory.
Mr. Christian was the one, and he went when Mr. Christian left there, he went to Highland, had a cheese plant up there, a cheese and butter plant in Highland, and then that's where Mr. Scheidecker came in. And he run that plant for a number of years, and the farmer decided to replace him. Well, me and Henry heard about this. So it was, I remember it was late fall, like about September, maybe about this time of the year. And so Henry was making cheese at Orangeville, Illinois, at Pleasant Valley Cheese Company. He was making Swiss down there, and they had some tenderloin down. He had, remember him having proper whiskers. And we went to, so we decided one afternoon we was going to go up there and we was going to check out this Belmont and see if, you know, not any idea what was going to happen. We went there and we was interested. It's a big operation. We had, there was 38 kettles in there. You know, that's a
All ways from 8, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, that was a big thing.
And we thought, my God, you know, what an operation this is.
What did you think, Deloris?
That was the biggest one in Wisconsin, wasn't it?
At that time, yeah.
What did you think going up there?
I didn't want to move away, I'll tell you that. I didn't want to leave Argyle.
That was Norski country.
That was not country. But we did anyway.
So I remember we went there, and then I decided, well, maybe Henry and me decided, well, maybe maybe they were financially big trouble. And then Belmont had Mount City Bank at Platteville had a subsidiary, small bank there at Belmont. So, and Henry had just bought a new Lincoln Premier. And it was just a beautiful car. It had his whiskers, and they had Illinois license plate pieces on you. And we went down to this bank, and they were like the corner of Main Street of Belmont, and it was cold. So Henry says, I'll just leave my car run. So he pulls it up in front of the bank, lets the car run. We both gets out. The banker runs up and locks the door. Wouldn't let us in. He figured we was going to rob the bank or whatever it was. He talked to us through the door, but he wouldn't let us in. And he says, if you want any information about this club, you got to go to so we told him we wanted some information. You want information? You go to Platteville. There's no information here, he said.
Now, what year was this about?
58.
1958.
Thanks.
Because Henry had, so we left, and the rumor was around Platteville that there was a couple of Illinois guys up here attempting to rob this bank. That was the rumor at that time. So we progressively pursued that, and we just and the co-op had a board of directors, and they said, hey, you know, they're both successful cheesemakers, and they want to join forces. This is a good opportunity for us.
Well, Art, did he kind of leave on his own accord, or was it because he?
Well, I would say they gave him that option.
Yeah. And maybe he wanted to get on his own to where he could buy the milk. So, yeah, a lot of people were starting to come into that family where they said, look, I don't want to listen to the farmers anymore. I don't know, you know, and milk buying was becoming something new.
So interesting thing was that Art, Mr. Scheidecker and Allie, his wife, did not buy or involve themselves in Chadwick, Illinois, until we had signed a contract that we was going to buy him out. I remember it cost us $76,000 to buy his tools, I think. Wasn't that the figure?
Long ways from 13.
Yeah.
But we're moving, of course, 38 cabins. That was a plan.
Yeah, and we and then there's where we got into experimenting with hydrogen peroxide. And really at that time it was, I guess you'd say it was kind of illegal to use. Because, you know, the state didn't approve it, or federal government didn't approve hydrogen peroxide, so.
But they did a lot of work on that.
Oh, yeah.
I think I did some of that early in the 50s.
Yeah.
From Forston down there. And we preheated.
Yeah, we pre-out milk.
And how was it a success on that?
Excellent. We could take marginal milk, I mean, not bad, but marginal milk, and by using hydrogen peroxide treatment and preheating it, you come up with a beautiful piece of cheese. The only problem you had with it was that our big problem was that, see, our brine tanks were cooled with copper coils, and copper and hydrogen peroxide, even in the product, was not compatible, and the cheeses have a light greenish tint on the outside. Oh, sure. And so we discovered through research that your stainless steel lines, the joints were soldered. It wasn't roll on like the other day. It was, there was solder. That solder in those little joints was enough to turn a pale green once it's cured. And so we found out, so we had all stainless steel coils put in our tanks, put in all, and had 900 milliliters from Monroe. And Paulie was pretty young at that time. Come up, we put in an Adolf Vogel. Come up, we put in
Kaiser.
Yeah, put in all new lines, and to eliminate that problem. And the farmer,
Excuse me, that's really quite an operation. How many milk trucks did you have, for instance?
14, about 14, because we at that time then bulk just started coming toward the tail end, and we wanted to expand. We wanted to put on more producers, and we had that opportunity. Board of directors decided that wasn't the thing to do. So we had some conflicts about that, and because we had grade A was just coming into picture at that time, and we was going to lose some large, good producers to the grade A market if we didn't do something. So me and Hank decided that, well, we're going to have to protect our bottom. So we bought a new truck from Chevrolet Garage. I remember the truck costing us $2,700, a brand new cabin chassis. Went to Walker's up at New Lisbon, and they built this bulk tank, and it was 1,200 gallons. We thought we had a big rig, 1,200 gallons.
Well, that was a big thing, though. Of course, the first bulk tank, Walker stains new.
So we was the pioneers of bulk milk trucks as far as manufacturing plant was concerned.
Well, this grade A kind of more or less had an advantage because they pool their milk through the federal order.
That's right. That's right. But see, Frenchie Geisbeater, down at Salzburg, he was one of the first assemblers of grade A milk. He had a surface cooler, monster surface cooler, and he used sweet water. You know what that is.
Yeah.
And he would pre-cool his milk, when he come in there, pump it in the tankers, and ship it out. And he was getting all the big producers through his grade A, but they was paying probably $1.50, $100 more for the milk than we could at that time. Of course it.
As technology came in, trucks and what, then come the competitiveness between the factories, and then there was the hard feelings between the farmers and each one to keep their little factory going. Then came the independence, and now we're really starting to see the economic competition. Then there was hard feelings. Whereas before, I heard one cheesemaker say, I never took another farmer from another fella, another factory, but that started to lose its sense. If you was going to exist, you had to get out.
Distance, was an object, but it wasn't no longer an object anymore at that point. Because I remember, you're right when you say farmers are. When I retreated the Upper Road Cheese Company, Godford Wirtz on the big was my neighbor. We were very close. And I had 32 or 35, 36 farmers, and he probably had about 40. And me and Godford, he would never, ever, he says, I don't care how despondent one of my farmers got. He was irritated with me. He could not say, tomorrow you start making milk. Godford refused him. I would do the same with his farmers. We would never take one of those producers. No matter how serious, how mad the farm had was something. He would have pet milk, but he couldn't come to us. We won't take him. So we had that kind of a bond at that time. And that's gone. That all disappeared over the years. And anyway, we stayed there and we wanted to expand the plant. We wanted then the weight was getting to be a problem. And we wanted to put up weigh disposal system, drying systems, and the co-op, we didn't want to go along with it. They said that cheesemakers are buying a new Cadillac. Me and was getting a new Cadillac every year. He said, you'll make it too damn much money. That was the big argument the farmer said at that time.
They used to say that you shouldn't buy a big car, buy an old one.
That's right. That's what they say.
Well, that's been going on back to the 30s already, when the old timers bought the Buicks. And
I remember we had bought 2 new Cadillacs. I think it was 1959. They had a long pointed tail, like double in the back. Henry had one, I had one. And this one director says to Henry, says, well, I don't mind you getting these cars, you don't have to have taillights that are a foot long, and you can't measure all, they're only 9 inches. I can remember him telling him. But anyway, what we did, and then Mr. Walters died at Platteville. He had a large operation. At one time, Mr. Walters had, I would have to say, 12 or 13 plants. He had a lot of plants.
Which was an assembly, where he assembled the cheese.
He made cheese in them. He had cheese plants all over. In Dickeyville and in Lewisburg and up in Arthur, all we had plants. And then he, finally what he did was he closed the small plants up and he started expanding in the Platteville area. But then he had real problems. He was with Ward's too, because that's where George Antone, he worked for him at that time. That's where I got to know George. We were back a long time. And
he was the fellow that came with the cultures and,
that's right.
and expertise from
Yep.
the university and come with the microscope.
That's where
And
I got
there were new things coming all the time. They were finding new things, whereas before they just went to the other neighboring factory and picked it up.
So they decided, then Paul, his son, Paul Walter, he wasn't interested in the cheese business at all. So he started, then they had the grade A. They had the grade A, Walters had the grade A in Platteville too. And Paul sold that to the Madison milk producers.
Excuse me, Jimmy, we're going to run out of tape here, so we're going to stop here for a few minutes and we'll turn this over and we'll continue. This is a very interesting story. And Doc here, and I don't know how he's making out with his tape, but according to history, they're in historic control, so we'll stop this.
Okay.
Okay, as I was,
Well, here we had Clarence and Deloris and Jenny, September 19th, 1995, down here in the East Uva. And excuse me, we just finished one tape here, Clarence, and starting a new one. And we were talking about the Platteville Walters factory there. Was it Walters, you saying?
yes.
Doc Hine got his tape going again here. I think we got about 20 minutes, so we'll see how it goes. And would you continue? It's been most interesting. Dolores, if you think you can help a little bit.
Well,
All right.
Well, anyway, so Paul Walters, which had went to teachers college, decided that he wasn't going to run the plant after Dick died, so he sold off the grade A division to Madison Milk Producers at Madison, Wisconsin. And most of the farmers at the Walters Dairy plant transferred to our Belmont operation. We ended up with most of their producers. And they the plant was virtually closed. Me and Henry says, well, there's an opportunity there. So we made our deal with Mrs. Walters and Paul. We finally bought the building. That was we still had 1 year contract left with the Belmont operation. So
Which was a cooperative.
that was a cooperative, and we was going to start buying them at Walters. So what we did was we bought the plant, we completely refurbished it, retiled it, new tile floors, tile walls, put in new equipment. No, we didn't put in. We put in all kettles. We had 48 kettles in, all in rolls, and we commenced to make a switch.
And who put that equipment in?
It was all put in with Paul Miller Adolf put in most of the equipment.
Full moon, Miller over here.
Yeah. And then I had not all, but I had at Darlington, which is Darlington, Jersey. But before that, there was he just Charlie Croker. He assisted in some of the equipment. We went and we opened the plant up. And me and Henry had an agreement that I was going to run the Belmont plant one day, and the next day I was going to run the Platteville plant, and vice versa. We changed off every day. One day Henry was
Brother
there.
Henry.
Yeah, me and Henry, we eat, every other day we was making one or the other locations. Never missed a day, 7 days a week. That's the way it worked. And we had, we told the farmers that we was not going to transfer any milk from the Belmont Cooperative to our flat well operation, but they was free to come at their own well. Well, it ended up, the first day that we opened the plant, there was 47% of the volume at Belmont transferred to Platteville. Of course, needless to say, the co-op got pretty upset about that, and decided that they wanted to terminate our contract. And we said, fine, that's all you need to do. He says that they wanted to buy us out. They wanted to buy. We owned all the equipment. We did not own the building, but we had all the physical liquid property in the building. And we had one argument after another about its value. So we decided that we had three. Me and Henry picked out three appraisers. And they were cheesemakers. I think one was, Mueller was one of them. I think Johnny Stoddard up in Central Factory was another one. And I can't remember who the third one was. And we told the farmers, the co-op, they could do likewise. They could pick out three appraisers. And the average of the two parties would be a satisfactory figure. Well, it turned out that it was to our advantage. You know, I mean, they agreed on it, so they was going to vouch on their original agreement. And so I had an attorney friend over there, so he went and talked to them, and they told him, well, he said, you better stick with the agreement, which they did, and we left that, and we got to expanding our the Platteville area of Platteville, and we ended up with a tremendous volume of milk there. We made, we was running those kettles 3 times. I think it was 108 kettles a day is what we ended up at. So all kettles. And
I think that's the largest factory that were in the United States. But
at that time.
Well, Utah, I don't think they ever got up over 100.
And we,
Which was Redwood's town.
no, it was just going in. We converted. It was converting at that point. We was making half wheels and half rhinos, block square. And we find out that it was more difficult to get somebody to wash and salt and turn the wheels. Help at that time was tough to get educated. They didn't want to work like we did.
I guess.
So we finally ended up making all. We made that. Then we went to all rhinos block. We started with the big block, the 200-pounders. Then eventually we went into the cut them in two. We made the 100-pounders. And we did that for our.
And where was your cheese going?
We were selling our cheese to Armour Creamery at that time. The majority went to Armour Creamery. We got close ties with Dorn, and of course.
Did you get an advance on your Swiss then?
Yes, they would advance a small fraction of it, but enough to keep you surviving so you can pay your bills. You know, the oil advance a little bit.
Because now you're buying the milk. Now you
Yes.
have to come through with the money and pay the farmers.
That's exactly right, and you sat on the product. And we did this for probably 2 or 3 years, and we way got to be a problem. We knew we had to invest a tremendous amount of money in the whey facilities, which we did. We was going to go in for an industrial revenue bond, and it was approved, and we turned it down. We decided that we'd do it ourselves, and we did. We put in 2 evaporators, and we had 8 rolls.
Roller dryers.
Roll dryers. And
What
we
type of boilers did you have?
we put in 2 new boilers. We put in 1,000 horse and all new and a 600 horse. So we had 1,600 horse. I remember and of course at that time fuel oil was relatively cheap, 9.5 cents a gallon, and we was burning oil. Natural gas wasn't there yet at that time.
It's a lot different than that 30, 40, 50, 60 horse that you had.
Oh yeah.
Boiler
How about
factory.
try a 20 horse upright? And we could. It burned a semi truck had 7,600 gallons of fuel and would last us 2.5 days. every 2.5 days we go through a tanker load of fuel oil, running those boilers to satisfy those dryers. See, each dryer, Serenity is, it's 100 horse per inch. So if you got a 120-inch roller, it took 120 horsepower for each roller. That's why you had to have the
And it
numbers.
was around the clock.
And run around the clock, never shut her down. We run that, and we got to the point where there was other cheese plants in our area, a number of them, Johnny Sherman, Linden, Gene Forbes at Livingston, all the cheesemakers had big problems. So we just fine, we'll haul the way in and we will dry it, and we
For
get-
animal feed.
For animal feed. And we was selling all the product to Monticello Dried Products, Joe Jones. And we bought, we was running 1 million pounds away a day to our drying operation. And we had 14 tankers home to these cheese plants and bringing this milk in. And we had 6 dry freight trailers. And we have a semi-load of dried weight a day went out of there. And I remember then all of a sudden,
Kind of describe that come off the grower, it looks like
Popcorn.
cheese.
Popcorn.
like popcorn.
Popcorn, you know,
It
that,
looks exactly like popcorn. And you'd bag it, in bags, and you'd load it on the trucks. And what we would do,
it's nice and sweet to eat.
and the majority at that time went into milk replacement for calves, feed calves, that's what they did with it. And I remember one farmer, Cy Whitener, he wanted to buy, he had beef cattle, probably 900 head, but he had put up a new saddle. It was a 20 by 80, a monstrosity, and he wanted to mix with his corn in the fall here. He got an idea. He says, "I'd like to try dried weight." He says, "You bring me out." He wanted a semi-load every other day, and he would mix this with his silage
Corn silage.
and corn silage,
Or hay salad.
blend them both. One load of corn,